Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. This episode, we are continuing our series on the Vex. We left off last time with the Taken War and the Taken being in the Sol system, and now starting to get to the Vex, and the Vex seeing this incursion as literally their extinction event. And on a leap of faith, they decided to pit paracausal enemy against paracausal enemy, and allowed Praedyth's messages to reach the Vanguard and eventually our Guardian to draw us in and deal with the Taken for them.
An enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
At least until that enemy is dead.
Until the enemy is dead or this inconveniences me. And then it's back to being my enemy.
Yeah. So that was kind of the last big interaction that Guardians had with the Vex in Destiny 1, was the events of the Taken War and just post-Taken War. So the next big thing that had an effect on the Vex that was not as apparent in game at the time, but had some pretty big implications later down the road, is the Red War. So, we know Red War, start of Destiny 2. The ships come rolling in. Dominus Gaul takes the tower, cuts off our access to the light. They did other things throughout the solar system, though. Dominus Gaul bolstered the offensive capabilities and offered reinforcements to the Cabal that were still surviving in the Sol system at the time of his arrival. One of those being the Cabal that were on Mars, and had built up their base around the gate to the Black Garden. Now, remember that we, the Guardian, had gone into the Black Garden, had destroyed the Black Heart, had killed the Soul Inherents, the three big Minotaurs that kind of get infused with the heart, and we had killed the Undying Mind, and it's the Undying Mind's function was to keep the Black Garden in its own little separate dimension, its own little time space. And up until this point in the Red War, we had succeeded in keeping the Black Garden on Mars, and the portal to it was on Mars. However, one of the first things that the Red Legion did as they rolled through the solar system was just to blow the gate up.
Well, that seems counterproductive.
They viewed a direct access to the Vex as essentially an enemy bulkhead.
Sure.
Or bulwark. That was
beachhead?
like
Beachfront.
That's the word I was looking for. Beachhead. But yeah, they saw it as direct access from the enemy to their encampments, and they're like, no, just get rid of it. Cut off the enemy's ability to come to us. And so they blew up the gate to the Black Garden, which unfortunately meant the Black Garden was now completely inaccessible to anybody. And all of the Vex that were still in the Black Garden can now do whatever they want to do undisturbed.
Yeah, that's probably worse.
It's probably not a great idea.
I feel like that's worse than just like getting rid of the bulkhead or the. God damn it, beachfront, beachhead. Fuck, god damn it. Access point.
There we go. Strong start this episode.
That's what I'm going to call it. Is access point. Because it's Vex, and that's what a gate is to them. It's just an access point to the Sol system.
Yeah, it's just the Vex AP.
Yep. Oh God. All these IT guys are all our IT friends are like, hey, yay, this Vex is us. We're just the master programmers. Yeah, no.
Do you think the Vex run on DHCP?
I 100% think they don't.
No, they don't. They would have run out of addresses very long ago.
There's no way they'd have enough addresses, dude. Like, even if you did dynamic no, shut up.
So needless to say, Black Garden cut off. The Vex that are in the Black Garden are doing whatever they want to do undisturbed now.
Well, and that, I guess that kind of brings up a question, is like, with the Black Heart being gone out of the garden and the three, I guess, protectors of it being gone, and then of course the Undying Mind being gone, and Undying Mind being gone, I'm going to put that with an asterisk because
yeah,
we'll get to that. Like, what is the function of the Black Garden at this point then?
Well, the Black Garden has been up until this point just kind of its own separate space, seemingly dedicated to worship
Okay.
of the Black Heart. Now, as far as what is its function now that the Black Heart is gone, we could reason that the function might still be to worship, maybe find something new to worship, or we know now from Lightfall that the Black Heart was created, maybe to create another Black Heart. But their directive of that collection of Vex that are in the garden though are still, I think, very focused on the like worship of a higher power.
Okay. Because they've, since they have seen something that can't be assimilated or can't be vexified, now they're just trying to find something to fill that empty programming section. Like, A must equal something, and that something before was this Black Heart. Well, we have to make it equal something again because that worked, and yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but our Guardian has more pressing matters at the time.
I mean, we're
considering
lightless.
Lightless and mortal and like not in good shape. So needless to say, the events of the Red War happen. Our Guardian is victorious. During that, there are a couple of other little tie-ins to the Vex. One being that the Red Legion drills into Nessus and to study the Vex mind at the heart of Nessus, which is Protheon. That causes the Vex to retaliate, and that's where we get the inverted spire strike.
And what is the purpose of that mind?
We don't know for sure. I think the assumption is that it was directing efforts to turn Nexus into a machine world similar to what Mercury was.
I love how Nessus became Nexus.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as far as like a function or subfunction or whatever, it's because again, I keep trying to think of the Vex as like this hierarchy, but there really isn't a hierarchy. It's just more of like functions and subfunctions.
Yeah,
and so
it's more processing power.
Yeah, yeah. So now thinking of it like that, I think that makes sense that mind at the bottom of that, or inside that thing, inside Nessus, is just there. Like, its whole function is to make Nessus Vex. Like,
yeah.
Which I would assume there was something similar to that, like that on Mercury, that I guess accomplished its goal. I guess.
Yes, there was. We talked about this a little bit, I think, in our second episode when we were talking about the different collections and Axis minds.
Right.
Dendron is the Axis mind that was responsible for converting Mercury.
That's the one where we travel through the Infinite Forest to the past and kill him in the past.
Yep. A simulation of him.
A simulation. Yep. A Garden World.
Yeah.
I think is the strike.
Mm-hmm. God, I believe so.
This I'm kind of sad some of this stuff is gone. Like,
I know, me too. But the other thing that was a direct connection to the Vex during the Red War was this little place called the Pyramidion. So similar to Nessus and Mercury, because that is the end goal of the Vex, right? Is make everything Vex.
Yep.
And so Io is also being turned into a machine world by the Vex there under the direction of the Axis mind Brachion, who is known as the Genesis mind.
Isn't he the goddess of the lake?
I mean,
Ha ha ha.
ha.
What lake?
Oh,
I miss
Ashmere.
Ashermere so much.
We need Asher in the game again.
We do.
Now it's theorized. So the Pyramidion was a little more than just like a Vex installation. The Pyramidion had more access to the Vex network as like a physical space.
Sure.
It seemed like it was maybe a very early attempt to recreate another Vault of Glass.
That's what I always thought of it as, because it has the very similar build structure to the Vault
Yeah.
of Glass, and it also it makes me think of all the structures there. Now, again, this is kind of like skipping around in the timeline a little bit, but that's, I mean, for some Vex reason, we can do that. The stuff inside, or is it inside? Yeah, I guess it is inside. Europa has a very similar build structure to the Pyramidion stuff. So I always thought of them as either a bigger, I guess a bigger vault of glass, like a vault of glass that could encompass the entirety of the Sol system across multiple planets, or as more, what are we calling it now? Beachfronts, beachheads, bulkheads.
Yeah,
more access points. Yeah, that's the new word. More access points for the Sol system is what I was curious if that's if it's more of just like an access point thing than an actual like functionality thing.
I think it's probably a little bit of both, honestly. Definitely worthwhile having the ability to, and again, the Pyramidion was another one that was kind of its own time space.
Right.
Like that seems to be what the Vex have landed on as their best method of having a undisturbed location to just like process and simulate is like, let's just remove it from the normal timeline, have it its own little independent thing. And when they do that, there's multiple places you can enter that dimension from. For us, the main Pyramidion doors on Io is one of those. It's very possible that some of the structures on Europa are or would be another one. Because I believe we enter the Pyramidion from somewhere else too. Well, the Pyramidion connects to the Vault of Glass at one point, right?
I think you're right.
I
think you're right.
I want to say there was a quest that took us where there was a connection between the two.
That seems right.
So, regardless,
I just remember the giant like structure at the bottom of it, like when you jump in the hole.
Yeah.
And the structure is like this, almost like a dodecahedron, right? A 12-sided dice looking thing. Like it. God, it was a really neat structure inside there, and I know there was a cutscene at some point in time. I think it's more recent, and maybe it's Splicer, maybe it's Season of Splicer. I don't remember. But there was a cutscene that showed that same like dodecahedron style piping for the like the edges of this dice structure. That it was just a bunch of Vex frames floating, and then they start getting filled with radiolarian, and they start activating, and then they just start walking through portals into our time space. So that's where I'm starting to think more of the Pyramidium as a access point for an invading force.
More militaristic.
Yeah. I think to me that's what it comes off as. But I also like the idea of it. I mean, it obviously their way of dealing with a problem of remove this thing from time space, so then we have essentially infinite time and infinite processing power and time cycles and all that stuff to just do and just experiment and just be. Because then once they remove it, now they can start creating copies of it, and then they can simulate more stuff in the simulations and virtual machines on top of virtual machines. um, and then come up with a solution, and then reinsert it at the exact same time in our timeline that it was removed, and then just insert Vex and insert solution.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. So regardless, Pyramidion was another entry point. We defeated Brachion in there, and helped stave off the Vex's attempts to turn Io into the next Mercury.
And gave Asher a little peace of mind.
Yes. Yeah. Gave him a little bit of revenge. For those that are not aware, that maybe have never dealt with Asher during the Destiny 2 campaign, Asher had delved into the Pyramidion prior to us, and had met Brachion there, and part of that, his escape, essentially, he was captured and eventually escaped, but not before he was exposed to radiolaria, and his arm is Vex, is the metallic Vex arm, and his ghost as well was starting to convert into a Vex kind of like construct of sorts. So he was on a time limit. Even, you know, even having a ghost still, he knew that eventually he would just be transformed, and was very keen to get revenge on Brachion before that happened. So we helped him with that.
Yeah. Well, I know this isn't an Asher episode, but I have one question about Asher. I know he was a guardian, but did he know he was a Jensen scribe? It always seemed that way because all of the references around him are Jensen scribe and all that, which obviously that's part of the Awoken stuff and all of that. And
Yeah.
he was an Awoken.
Yes.
So it's interesting that he is a guardian, that he's another Anna Bray that like looked into his past and like either accepted it or still had instincts of it or something.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether he was a Jensen scribe prior to his revival and then he went back, or it may be that after he was revived, his curiosity and scientific process took him to the scribes after becoming a guardian, and he became a member at that point.
Yeah.
But either way, he is recognized by multiple people, Eris Morn among them, as being a Jensen scribe.
Okay. Cool. Neat.
Yeah. So, leading from the Red War, the next big involvement with the Vex is Curse of Osiris. And this is kind of an interesting one because I think it's fairly well known that Curse of Osiris did not land well when it came out. And so there's a lot of people that maybe have never played Curse of Osiris and maybe don't even know really what happened during Curse of Osiris.
It was also a very confusing time in Destiny because I think they came out with a comic book that has some stuff to deal with Curse of Osiris, but then like they went back and was like, yeah, this isn't exactly correct. So let's scrub some of this from memory.
Yeah, so we're not going to be touching on the comic, and the comic focuses more on Osiris, the person, anyway. But Curse of Osiris, the story of the expansion campaign, was very Vex centric. So we and actually I'm sure it's still out there. I would recommend looking up the Curse of Osiris cinematic, kind of opening cinematic. But so at the end of the Red War, the Traveler reawakens, or awakens, and the Vex begin after this big pulse of light goes through everything. Everything in the universe felt that pulse, including the Vex. Even if they can't simulate light, they can feel its effects They can feel what it does to
Oh,
the universe.
Atheon feels it every time I put a Nova Bomb into him, or a
Yep.
or a Chaos Beam into him.
So the Vex felt just as much as anything else that like this big light pulse happened, and something in the universe had changed from that point forward. And the Vex decided, rather than their main programming be just turn everything Vex eventually, time doesn't matter to us, just turn everything Vex eventually. Although that's still their primary objective, they added a new secondary objective. That secondary objective being, do whatever we need to do to simulate and then carry out the extinction of light and dark in the universe, full stop.
How do you even how? I don't that's bad. Let's take that first. Extinction of light and dark in the universe equals bad, because then we have like
bad.
Zero way to deal with the Vex. Paracausality is the only thing holding the Vex at bay.
And they know that. And when they see light, when they see a paracausal force of the universe just getting stronger and having a universe-wide effect, that kind of reprioritizes things for them. Because I think up until this point, the Vex were very much like, okay, Guardians are a nuisance. We will need to deal with them eventually, and we'll have those processes going in the background to try and come up with a plan to deal with them. But there's a lot more of us than there are of them. We're just going to keep doing our thing and converting things, and eventually, we'll outlive or outnumber them. But now they've had like, oh, light isn't just here as we know it. It can get stronger. There's another big source of it out there, and it's close to the soul system. We really need to figure out how to deal with this now. And the thing, your question is like, how? Because we know from the outside looking in that Vex can't simulate paracausality. But that's not going to stop them from trying. Like,
that's true.
That's not going to stop them from trying to figure out, okay, how do we simulate this? Or alternatively, even though if they can't simulate paracausal effects, if they know where the paracausal power is coming from, they can still eliminate that threat. They can still make plans to destroy the Traveler or kill Guardians.
Could they remove the Traveler from our time space?
Potentially.
I mean, we saw Savathun do it.
Yeah, I don't see why they couldn't. They already have little pocket universes. Just build one around the Traveler.
Oh my God. What if that's what all this stuff... What if they're building one around the Soul system?
Hey, that's a possibility.
The Pyramidion, Europa, the
just
Garden
blink
World, blink the
whole
entire solar system out, because that's... I mean, that deals with a lot of threats all at once.
It does. But for better or regardless of how they were going to try and do it, they reprioritized and said extinction of light and dark is now a paramount priority to our main objective.
Sure. Because I feel like looking through their timelines, once they see that big blip, their percentages of timelines that end in their vexification of the universe have now decreased. So now, like before, when it was like 99.9% of timelines end in us achieving our goal of vexification of the universe. Paracausality accounts for that 0.1%. Now with this big blip, now it's like, okay, now we're looking at a 75% success rate. That is unacceptable.
Yeah. So the Vex, up until this point, have had access to a literally planet-wide reality engine called the Infinite Forest. And we can think of this as kind of I think of the Infinite Forest as like the Vex's CCTV room. Like
Oh yeah.
this is where they just have a billion monitors and every monitor is playing off a slightly different version of a particular event, and they're just studying it to try
Yep.
and figure out like what kind of advantages can they glean from the information in the little differences. And right now all of their focus is on the study of light bearers, the traveler. How do we eliminate the ability for light or dark to exist in the universe so that we can continue our pattern? And this new dedication to this goal changes drastically the simulations happening in the Infinite Forest. Rather than simulations kind of about, just the vexification of the universe in general and maybe particular things that they've had struggles with, all the simulations are now get us to this future of no paracausal powers in the universe. And Osiris, who was in exile at this point and had dedicated himself to exploring the infinite forest and trying to learn about the Vex and about what the Vex's goals were by literally viewing and experiencing the simulations, he saw this shift. And he saw that every single simulation was now heading to this dark future of there's nothing in the universe except Vex, and the probability of that happening was going up and up and up as the Vex started to they didn't solve the problem of paracausality, but they were starting to like whittle away at some of the outside issues and getting just that little bit closer and then that little bit closer. Every passing day, week, I mean, to the Vex, time is nothing.
It's nothing.
And so Osiris, who's inside, saw this and is like, something has changed. The Vex are now specifically targeting the light. We need to let people outside know. And so and this is in the cinematic, he comes under fire from Vex in the simulation, and forcibly pushes his ghost, Sagira, out of the infinite forest, intending for her to be a messenger to get to Ikora or somebody to let them know like something very big is happening with the Vex right now. We need to we need reinforcements. We need to figure this out.
He also cheats in this scene. He casts Dawnblade and then instantly uses Well. Well, he does 2 swipes and then does Well in midair down, like he's cheating.
Yeah. I mean, we see where Ikora gets it.
That's what I'm saying. It's only warlocks that are cheating. I've never seen a hunter or a titan cheat. I'm just saying, Myth, we might be the bad guys.
Well, I think that's mostly because we don't play PvP, but
this is also true. So it's okay to cheat in PvE, right?
Right, yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. We didn't use cheater guns for a whole weekend to just kill like one-shot bosses.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's fine. It's a glitch in the Matrix. Or the Vex. The Vex Matrix. It's funny you brought up that CCTV thing, and all I could think of was like the architect's room. And it's just it's just a Vex mind sitting in his chair, and he's just watching everything.
But so our guardian comes across Sagira. She's in pretty dire straits, and we get her back up and running by having her hijack our ghost for a little bit, which is an
rude.
Interesting it was a little rude to Ghost. But in that way we've got her traveling with us, and we discover with her and talking to Ikora and whatnot, that the Axis mind that controls the infinite forest is this entity by the name of Panoptes.
It's got to be Greek, right?
Probably say Panoptes the infinite mind, to be exact.
You know what I'm going to ask you.
And yes, it is Greek. So
Haha.
it comes from the name Argos Panoptes, also known as the many-eyed giant in Greek mythology.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty spot on. He
Yeah.
had this mind would have many eyes into many different simulations of futures and realities. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
So we know Panoptes is the thing controlling the infinite forest, and ultimately is kind of the main unit that is doing all of the processing and prioritizing for this goal within the infinite forest. And Sagira, Osiris's ghost, has this idea about, okay, how do we track down where in the infinite forest this one Vex mind exists? How do we know? And so she has the idea of, well, let's use the forest against him. And Sagira is able to utilize the forest enough with the help of Osiris, and kind of control where we get put when we enter the forest, putting us in a simulation of the far past version of Mercury, where it is still a garden world with lush vegetation, and the Vex have really just started to turn it into the machine world we know it as. And Sagira's reasoning here is, let's find Panoptes at, a simulation of Panoptes when it was first turning this planet, and then use the information of that simulation to run a simulation of our own, and that simulation being what is the rest of Panoptes' actions after this point in time.
Dude, this is like the ultimate like spy versus spy. I'm in your network. I'm in your network, fucking up your shit. Like
kinda, yeah.
This is such a good. And again, I have to laugh because everyone refers to this as like the dark times in Destiny. Like nobody really knew if Destiny was going to survive past Curse of Osiris, and even Warmind expansion was like it was dark times for Destiny, and I think a lot of people miss these stories, and I remember like the key points of the story of like, hey, Panoptes bad, go kill Panoptes. Okay, done, kill Panoptes. All right, thanks. But I didn't remember it being this deep. Like I'm having a hard time recalling some of these events.
Yeah, so we trace, we find an area, a simulation that shows us like what Panoptes was doing in the past, use that information to extrapolate where Panoptes ended up in our point in time, so that way we know where we need to go to lead our assault on the Vex mind. However, Panoptes can also see everything going on in the infinite forest.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't.
So, although we discover its location, it also discovers that what we're trying to do. And now this is interesting. So maybe this will jog your memory. At the end of the mission where Sagira extrapolates Panoptes' location, Panoptes shows up and sucks the soul, I guess, of Sagira out of our ghost.
Oh shit. I don't remember that at all. Holy shit.
Yeah, so there, Sagira is kind of like overlaid on our ghost for the entire time at this point, and our ghost hasn't talked. It's just been Sagira's voice, and like there's this kind of astral outline of Sagira's shell.
Yeah, like that ghostly looking
inside of ours.
Yeah.
And presumably that's like it's never really touched on, but it seems to be that that's like the light of her, like her
I'm gonna call it a spirit. I'm gonna call it exactly what I think
kinda.
it is. It's
Yeah,
Sagira's spirit in like possessing our shell.
essentially. Um and Panoptes is able to manipulate it and affect it and actually separate it from our ghost shell during at the end of this mission. Um and it has now taken the soul of Sagira captive. Uh and the mission ends, our ghost is like comes out of it and is like, what is going on, where are we, what is happening? Because they've just been out of it for everything that's been happening while Segura was driving.
I was going to say because I remember how we get her in the shell. Like we go to a secret Osiris stash and in
Mm-hmm.
the EDZ, and then like you put her shell in there, or in our shell in there, and then it like suck, and then poof, now she's in your shell, and you're like, what the hell? And your shell is definitely your shell is definitely in a backseat driver mode at that point. But I
Yes.
totally forgot about the whole like it's Panoptes taking her back and being like, haha, spy versus spy that, you little shit.
So needless to say, we have Panoptes' location though, so we know where to find it. We meet up with Osiris. We let him know that like Sagira has been taken, um, and that this is where we're gonna go. Uh, so we lead an assault on Panoptes. And the location is Crown of the Infinite. Is the space where we discover and fight Panoptes. And also interestingly enough, and some of this is because video game, but Panoptes is not damageable. We all of our abilities and bullets do nothing to them.
This is their space. They do whatever the fuck they want in here.
Well, this is their space, and I also wonder, and this is all speculation at the right now. I also wonder if this is the Access Mind processing all the information from all the simulations in the Infinite Forest with a dedicated focus on how do we fight slash erase light.
Oh my god, because we're just assaulting it with as much light and light powered stuff as we can. Because I think
Exactly.
that's the big thing too. With like a lot of our guns, the bullets that we're shooting out of there, when we shoot like an arc bullet, like we don't have just like arc bullets laying on the ground. We are shooting arc light out of our guns, and so like it's to have that much data points and to be able to study that much data points in the infinite amount of time that it can. Yeah, this is it outsmarting us 100%.
Yeah, and I think part of its invulnerability may very well be that it has started to figure out
Yeah,
how to combat these abilities.
because you do eventually get it, but you have to like overload it with. I remember you have to do like a jumping section,
Yep.
and you like fly through a bunch of hoops, and you pick up a certain orb. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, so Osiris shows up, and Osiris and his reflections are able to stun Panoptes and kind of hold him in place long enough that we then can overcharge an orb of arc energy, and we shove it, in like the weak spot that Osiris has opened up, and then that finally lowers the shields on Panoptes enough that we get a damage phase in.
See, because he still has to. He still has to. Well, I guess I don't know. This is the infinite forest. I'd almost say he has to live by the rules of our physicality, but I mean, I guess to a point. Still
Well,
proves that Arc is the superior subclass.
yeah, sure.
Just saying, Arc Souls for days, boys.
Yeah, so the thing with with the rules of the universe, like, yes, if the Vex have created a pocket universe, they get to decide the rules of that universe, but they only have the rules of the universe they came from,
as like
and
a baseline.
right, like they can only, they can't, I don't believe, at least I should say, I don't believe that the Vex have the ability to like
Create new rules,
create new
like
rules
do
without
away
there
with
being a
gravity.
cause for them.
I think you're right. I think because they are very they've put every universe before this that they've existed in um, has been a cause and effect uh, based universe, and therefore because that's all they know, and they are now in this universe with a new force that is not cause and effect. They still have to base every law and everything they do around the ideas of cause and effect. So
Yeah.
that's why all mathematical laws and scientific laws still have to take effect and be accurate inside these simulations. Otherwise, it goes against everything that they know as far as just the basic programming of the universe, and would be I would think that they would look at that as like an abomination, and would then start worshiping it like they did with the Black Heart, because that's the whole thing with the Black Heart, is that it didn't follow the rules of cause and effect, and so it broke them. And so I don't think they would be able to create a simulation without it having perfect cause and effect, because that's all they're studying at the end of the day is look at cause and effect to the nth degree and see what happens at every crossroads.
Right. And if they created a simulation that didn't have the exact same rules as the universe they're trying to simulate,
It'd be an invalid simulation.
right, like the data wouldn't mean anything
Yeah.
to them. They
Yeah.
couldn't act on it. So
I like that. That's super accurate. Like
yeah.
that makes a hell of a lot more sense why the Vault of Glass, and dude, that really does make those areas make sense now. Like they have to follow our rules, because at the end of the day, if they do a bunch of shit in a simulation and they're just like, well, what if we just blow this shit up? Okay, whatever. What if we turn gravity off for a day in this simulation? Okay, that's neat. Well, I can't do that in reality, so cool.
It doesn't help me. Yeah.
Cool, Jim. You turned off gravity. Now what? And I don't know, but it was neat, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. But now what?
Yeah. So and the other thing to remember is that when the Vex create a pocket universe, unless there is an outside kind of source or outside interference, they do not have the capability to have light or dark in their pocket universes.
Because they can't simulate it.
Because they can't simulate it.
It's got to have some type of access to it, or else it's a nothing simulation, essentially.
Yeah. So in the case of Vault of Glass, we have Kabir, who punched a paracausal hole through their the barrier of their universe to let the light in.
That's so Titan, right? Like,
yeah.
How do I solve this? With my fists. My fists can't run out of bullets.
Nope. Never need to reload these guns.
Yeah. Never skip leg day. Never skip arm day.
Oh God.
That's for all you Titans out there. I know we pick on you guys a lot. We come running to you when that bubble pops up.
But no. So in case of Vault of Glass, it was Kabir. In the case of the Garden, it was the Black Heart. The Black Heart was the paracausal entity that they didn't know what to do with. And in the case here in the Infinite Forest, I would say Osiris.
I definitely feel like
is the conduit,
because he's essentially like an infectious bug there. He's created so many reflections of himself that it's just infecting every part of the Infinite Forest and just because he's just using all of his reflections as data points, right? Like as observation data points. And on the one hand, that's great, but now there's a light source in every one of these simulations that's screwing with the data on Panoptis's end. And he's like, this is just bugs in the system. And I think, isn't there a mission called Bugs in the System?
Probably. That does sound familiar.
I feel like that's a mission or something. Bug in the system. No. Okay. You know me, I'm going to make you Google it, but I'll make you Google it later. But yeah, so like all these little individual points of light is all just like, what would you think of that as on the Vex end? Would that just be like blank data points? Like since they don't even know how to simulate it or I guess even interpret it, like it just looks like
it would be
corrupt data?
unreadable. Yeah, it'd be
Unreadable, yeah.
unreadable data.
So yeah, like to have millions of those throughout the entire Infinite Forest would just screw with Panoptes. Dude, okay, we're starting to make sense of like because video games now.
A little bit.
I like it.
By the way, yes, bug in the system was a Curse of Osiris.
I knew it.
So good job.
See, I remember something. I remember very specific things, but the overall, like, yeah, no.
Yeah, and I guess also to put a point on this, for anyone that was not introduced to Osiris prior to the current campaign, prior to Beyond Light, I guess, Osiris was a guardian, which most people probably knew, but when he was a guardian and he had his ghost Sagira, he was classified as one of the most powerful guardians ever.
I think the only one that even like comes close to rivaling him is Ikora.
I believe so, yeah.
But Ikora was his mentor, so it's like
his
she
student.
would be like say like, oh yeah,
Ikora was his student.
Osiris was her mentor. She is the student of Osiris. Yeah. Yep. So it makes sense that like his main prodigy would be the second most powerful because like they never that's the whole thing with the prodigies, like they're never like the most powerful, they're always the second most powerful because then why would they need a teacher? Yeah,
right. And Ikora,
that also explains why she freaking cheats.
Yeah she got the codes from
It's ridiculous, man. We're all warlocks here, just share.
If only. But no, and I think one could maybe argue that Ikora is stronger in a pure like brute force and in a pure just like power output.
Sure.
But Osiris has always been extremely clever with his usage of his light and has a very deep understanding of the different facets of it. He was primarily a solar warlock and was known for literally creating copies of himself out of solar light, and not just copies that, okay, cool, there's a couple of me on the battlefield and they have to, decide which one to shoot at. No, like copies that were then able to explore entirely different simulated timelines within the Infinite Forest.
Autonomous.
Yeah, all at the same time across, a dozen or more copies, and all completely on their own, and then come back and kind of reabsorb that information into him.
Because that was even like his big thing on like, and I know this isn't an Osiris episode, and I keep branching. I'm sorry, but that was like his thing with like was it Battle Six Fronts or Battle Twilight Gap, where he like he was seen on multiple fronts at the same time because that was his reflections. He was he was actively using his light to do that. He was like, cool, you got self-res, I got reflections. What now? Yep. And everyone's just like, shit, I don't know how to deal with that. I thought I knew how to deal with self-res. I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, which means the Warlock Solar Super should really be give us reflections. But
I'm just saying, man, can you imagine? Just put up like 10 of us and they're all just mimicking our even if it's just like a mimicry, right? Like has the same guns as us, kind of has the same battle tactic, like whatever we shoot at, all 6 of those shoot at it. I could go for that. Yeah. My own personal 6-man fire team.
There you go.
Oh my god, that'd be so fucking broken. There's no way. There's no way.
No, there isn't. It'd be cool though.
Oh my god, pop that PvP and you're just like, fuck, which one is real?
But so needless to say, through our joint efforts between Osiris and our guardian, Panoptes is eventually destroyed, thus freeing Sagira. And I remember when Osiris, like when the final blow is hit against Panoptes, Osiris, is like, and give me back my ghost.
Yeah.
So Sagira is freed and back in her shell. Panoptes is destroyed. This cripples the Vex's use of the Infinite Forest to they can no longer continue to simulate the abilities to combat the light.
Which is good.
Which is very good.
Very good. Because that was the big thing is like I remember the simulation that it shows us at I think the beginning of the campaign where it shows like an image from the lighthouse and it's just the sun is snuffed out, like it's a dead sun and all there is Vex, like there is nothing left in the universe.
Yep. So we have, for the time being, prevented that, and not only have we, kind of cut off the head of the Vex in the Infinite Forest, the thing that was directing all the others, but Osiris is now in a position to put himself in that role of control of the Infinite Forest. Although he has, I would say, much less control than Panoptes did, he has enough that he can prevent the Vex from doing anything truly catastrophic in there. But that doesn't mean Osiris doesn't make some mistakes of his own.
I mean, he's only human.
So while trying to further investigate the Infinite Forest, Osiris has the brilliant idea of, well, let me see how it started. And so he simulates the creation of the Infinite Forest from its very beginning, which is the transition of Mercury into a machine world, by Dendron, the root mind. And so he, assuming that he'll be able to control Dendron, re-simulates Dendron to understand the process of creating the Infinite Forest, and lo and behold, he cannot control the root mind after all, and requires us to come in and kill it again.
That's the Garden World
strike.
Yep. Such a good one. And it
was a good one.
The funny thing that the one thing that makes me laugh is Dendron's a Colossus.
Yeah.
Like Colossus, it's funny. Like we've talked about Hydras and we've talked about Minotaurs and goblins and hobgoblins. Colossuses are the one thing that we haven't really touched on at all. Like, what is a Colossus a purely military unit? I mean, it can't be if it's here creating the Infinite Forest.
Yeah. And to be specific, not Colossus, Cyclops.
Cyclops.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the not Hive. Damn it. Who are the big red guys? Cabal. God, shit. Oh, it's one of those nights, man. It's one of those nights. Yes, Colossus is Cabal. Cyclops is, because it has one eye. That makes sense.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's Greek because the Minotaurs and shit. The Vex makes total sense now.
Just now getting that, are we?
Hydras, Minotaurs, Colossus. Holy shit. 10 years of Destiny, and I just now made that connection.
Well, better late than never.
I guess. I feel a little dumb tonight, but that's fine. It's whatever. It's cool. Cyclops, and it only has one eye, and it's just like, God dang it. Anyway, they have primarily been military style. I think of them as military style, like fortification turrets. I've never thought of them as like having their own like priorities and minds and sub-function and stuff like that. But Dendron is one of those and is the thing that created the Infinite Forest.
Yes. Yep. Well, Dendron is the one that spearheaded the converting of Mercury into a machine world and the building of the Infinite Forest, and then the one in charge of directing what went on in the forest was Panoptes.
Would be Panoptes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm following now. I'm following. So he's still just like a builder unit anyway. Okay.
Yeah, it's he's the construction foreman.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep. Not to downplay construction foreman. We know you're important.
Oh yes, yeah.
But then, like, what the building is used for is a totally different job. So there's no equation there.
Exactly. But so needless to say, at this point in time, Osiris is at the helm of the Infinite Forest, trying to use it to his own designs to discover and research information that he deems necessary, and trying to prevent the Vex from being able to really gain a foothold back into the Infinite Forest to resume control of it. And that's just kind of how things go until Shadowkeep.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
That's like a year and a half.
Yeah, the Vex don't really have a big presence, and honestly, the Drifter actually mentions this in Forsaken, kind of as an offhanded dialogue. It's flavor text for when you're like fighting the Vex during Forsaken in Gambit, and Drifter mentions that we have crippled the Vex to the point where they don't even have different collectives anymore.
Oh,
like
shit.
They've had
like reabsorbed back into themselves, and they're just the Vex collective now.
Yeah, they have had to take all their various divisions, other than the Soul Divisive, which is still in the Garden,
because that's still cut off from from all of us.
But all of the other Vex across the Soul System that had their own little collections and their own little access mines with their own primary functions, like they're running so low on resources at this point that they have had to condense everything back into just one collective.
I mean, what can I say? We're VIP 2014. That's what we do. We
did
kill
the same
gods.
thing to the Fallen.
Exactly. We'll cripple the whole damn system.
So it makes a certain amount of sense that the Vex haven't been very active for a little while, because they've just been trying to consolidate at this point.
And I think the only like major things that happen would have been like the stuff with Quoria, but that's again not really Vex. That's once Quoria is taken by Osiris. Damn it. Once Quoria is taken by Oryx and gifted to Savathun, now it's just a taken. It's no longer, it's outside of the Vex network, and therefore it's its own thing.
Yeah, and we're referring there to Quoria's hand in what happened to the Dreaming City.
Right.
Not when we meet Quoria later on.
Correct. Because that also has repercussions and prepercussions. I don't know. I'm using that word. Yeah. The only other thing would be the one Vex at the forge, but I think that's still just kind of like a minor, like we just so happen to be on Nessus doing the forge stuff, and there just so happen to be high Vex there, and they're like, oh look, light stuff. Okay, well shit, we got beat. Bye.
Yeah, I think, again, if the Vex are just trying to consolidate, they're probably also looking for any means of getting, an advantage, more firepower, whatever it may be, and probably saw the Forge as a potential avenue to that. And then when they were, when we defended it successfully, they decided it's not worth pouring more resources into that. So
that's paracausality, baby.
Yep. But yeah, that brings us to Shadowkeep. And more specifically, the end of Shadowkeep / Season of the Undying. So, during Shadowkeep, the very end of Shadowkeep, we have received this dark artifact from the pyramid ship. And it's discovered that this dark artifact is communicating with something. There's a signal link between it and this unknown point in space-time. And Eris takes note of this and is like, we should track down what this is talking to. On the other end of that link is the Soul Divisive in the Black Garden. And they also take notice that their artifact on their end is now communicating with something out in the Sol system. And whereas Eris is like, go find this. This is going to give us information we can potentially use. The Vex see this as oh, there are invaders coming. Like something from outside is communicating with our, holy relic inside. Something's going to come to it from the outside. Therefore,
access point.
Yeah. Therefore, we should be proactive and defend our relic.
Well, shit. Okay. Now, real quick, does this have anything to do? Because this was always a point that kind of confused me, and this could just be a because video game thing. That artifact that we find at the end of Shadowkeep, because we find it in the pyramid ship, right? It's sitting on the altar, or like right in front of the altar of the big statue that's there at the end. There's a similar artifact that we find through Zydron's gate that eventually leads to us getting divinity.
Yeah.
Is that a similar artifact, or is that like the same artifact in a different timeline?
Unclear.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose it could,
because we get it directly
either
from the gate that's there, which I know we're about to talk about all this, so I'm going to just put it there. Like Zydron's gate there is where you get that artifact from, and I believe I think it summons Zydron when you go in there, but I don't remember. I know Zydron is obviously corrupted when you get in there with the nightmares and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's from a different timeline or if it's just another relic of a similar design, or what. I don't remember there being anything to imply that it's a different timeline version, other than just it happened to be around Vex stuff,
Right.
So
I've always been curious about divinity and like why divinity does what divinity does. And to me, it's a Vex thing. Like we're channeling Vex into an enemy, creating a weak point in it.
Yeah. Yeah, more or less. Like that divinity is a Vex gun.
Yeah. We're shooting Radiolarian into a thing to like make it weak. Oh my god, the bubble it's doing is also the imminent detainment bubble. Oh my god, we are literally shooting Vex.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Okay. All right. Divinity is a little bit more important than I thought it was.
Divinity is a little cooler now.
It's a little cooler. It's not, again, that's the thing, right? Like the first person to say who's got divinity has to use it in the raid. So we've come up with colorful ways to not call it divinity. Who's got the gun? What gun? You know that one gun we use for the debuff and stuff? You mean divinity? He's got to use it. He's got to use it.
But yeah, so there's this connection now between these two artifacts, and the Vex are seeing it as essentially a sign of war to come. And so they have decided they're going to be the preemptive attack, go on the offensive rather than the defensive. And during Season of the Undying, we saw this. They just start invading the moon.
It's so cool. That graphic that was in the sky, that was it literally looks like a giant Matrix style access hole has been ripped into reality, and Vex are just pouring through it.
It's really cool. It's I guess the closest thing we would have now is like the Vex incursion on Neomuna.
Sure.
But
I think there's a similar graphic to when you do the Avalon mission.
Yeah.
That graphic is in the sky above there when you collect all the little different access points to do the initial start for the Avalon mission. If you look up in the sky, you can see that graphic, and it's amazing. It literally I think that's what the graphic is symbolizing is the Vex are ripping a hole in their network and connecting their network directly to our reality and saying we're just going to start focusing here.
Yeah. So the Vex are, are seeing the source of this incoming signal as the moon, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna destroy everything on the moon then. Um,
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. And they start invading, and uh, in an effort, in efforts to worship and protect the garden, and specifically the relic within the garden, um, the Vex invasion and the Vex of the Soul Divisive in general are being controlled now by two Axis minds. These are the Axis minds known as the Soul Inherent minds. And they are the Consecrated Mind and the Sanctified Mind.
Oh, okay.
Now,
these names are sounding familiar. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to figure out where I'm.
These are the bosses in Garden of Salvation.
Gotcha.
Now, something interesting here. So, good to remember that this is the first time since the Red War that the Black Garden has been accessible. So the Soul Divisive has been able to do whatever they've wanted for years of our time, at least.
Millennia.
Yeah, who knows how long inside the garden.
Infinite time.
So they have constructed these two new access mines to delegate, what the Soul Divisive does. One of those access mines, the consecrated mind, seems to be more of a defensive mind. Like that's the mind that takes over protection protocols.
Sure.
Whereas the sanctified mind seems to be the one that acts more in a religious sense, is more the one that dedicates the worship protocols.
Okay.
Our guardian, is following the signal in the opposite direction. Like the Vex did their preemptive attack and invaded the moon.
I'm curious if that connection there is what like reapplied the garden to our timeline.
I don't know that it's the connection that did. It certainly could be.
Because if something in our timeline was communicating with something in that time space, it would have to have some type of connection point, right? Which is why they chose the moon, because they saw the signal coming from the moon. So then, I guess they the Vex reattached the garden to our timeline to say that's the thing we need to kill.
That's what I'm not sure about. I don't know if the Vex reattached it or if, by nature of the relics being of the darkness and therefore paracausal, had the ability to like force the garden back into existence.
Okay.
In our, our reality. That bit is unclear.
Because that's the other thing too to note here is that the Garden of Salvation raid is the Black Garden. Like yes. It's not a separate. It's not like a new version of the Black Garden. Like it's certainly a grown version, I guess, because it. Well, I guess it wouldn't even be older too, because if it got reconnected to our timeline, well, I guess it wouldn't matter. Fuck, I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
It could be an older version. It could be and the reason why I think it's like an overgrown is because that first area that you come to, that first the very first boss encounter you come into, that is the arena where you fought the Black Heart.
Yes, it is.
But it's just like way overgrown. So that's where I feel like it's been millennia in the Black Garden when it gets reconnected and is now the Garden of Salvation.
It's possible. Time definitely works differently inside the garden compared to outside. We also know from our readings for our Aldrin series, when Aldrin was in the garden, though, that stuff just grows there. Like,
freaky shit.
Right.
Like little IC chips that have now all their little pins are now legs and they're crawling across the ground, and
Yeah.
that's just a freaky image in my brain that lives rent free now because of the Aldrin stuff.
But so it is just a place where like weird
Growth
things
just
grow.
happens. Okay.
Yeah. So hard to say exactly what if it's just time or if there's more to it than that. Um but yeah, needless to say, our guardian forms up a raid team, follows that signal in, comes face to face with the soul inherent minds. The first being the consecrated mind, which takes the form of a giant harpy. Um, and consecrated, and this is something that's going to be a theme in Garden of Salvation. Consecrated is having been made or declared sacred.
Makes sense.
If we want to go the Christian route, declared to be or represent the body and blood of Christ. Now, the reason why I think this is relevant, there is heavy Christian symbolism throughout the Garden of Salvation in the naming of the various enemies we fight.
Really?
Well, you have the consecrated mind, the sanctified mind, the angelics or the angels
Oh shit.
that you have to fight throughout to allow you to damage the other
I
Vex.
never even put that. Dude, I'm having discoveries tonight. I never
Yeah.
even put that together. I never even like connected the fact that they were called angelics and thinking of them as angels.
So the Vex in here, and because we know the garden is a place of worship, of where the Vex developed worship, like these are this is being represented in the naming now, where these are like considered they used Christian naming convention here, but it could have been anything and it would have had the same message. But yeah, it's this like this is a holy place now for
Yeah.
these Vex, and they have Vex of certain stations that are considered holy or sacred. So the consecrated mind being the first we come across, and the second being the sanctified mind. And sanctify, very similar to consecrate or consecrated, uh, means to if something is sanctified, it is like it's set apart or declared holy, is considered free from sin, or is considered the ultimate purity, or pure soul. Is something that is sanctified by
That's just blowing my
definition.
mind. Like thinking of this boss standing in front of me with that context
Yeah.
behind it is just that's I don't know. That's breaking my brain right now, man.
So for those that haven't done Garden of Salvation, after you defeat the last boss, you discover that what they've been defending and presumably worshiping up to this point is a pyramid ship.
Yeah.
Is
But
a
it's not the
pyramid ship.
big pyramid ship. It's the
No.
or is it? Because like when the little guy forms, it's one of those little I don't know what to call them, like little skiffs.
Yeah, I think they technically call them scales, pyramid
Yeah,
scales.
I think you're right. I'm trying to think of my season of arrivals
I know, yeah.
terminology. So that little scale forms, and then but it formed like it's been sitting in the ground, and it forms up above, and then when you jump down inside, another one of those statues is sitting inside there.
Yep, another one of the veiled veiled women
Yeah,
statues is down there with I'm pretty sure in there is a copy of the same relic that
yeah,
we were
yep.
we had given to
Well, and
Eris.
that's where you take once you've got all the puzzles solved in there for divinity, that's where you take the divinity relic. Like you have to beat the boss and get down to that relic. So that's where I'm curious of. I think that divinity relic is actually a copy of it, and the reason why we can use it is because it's kind of like outside the Vex's control. Like
yeah, I could see that.
And then you're like reuniting it with the real thing, and yeah, I don't know. I love seeing explanations of just game mechanics in lore, and that's where I keep looking at Divinity as this odd. I mean, the fucking name of the gun is called Divinity. Oh my god!
Yeah,
like a divine thing. Oh my god! 10 years of Destiny have just come crashing down on my face. Like, you idiot. Yeah, I get it.
But so yeah, presumably,
dude, are all the guns? Oh my god, all the guns are too.
Or have that theming.
Sacred Providence.
Yeah.
Accrued Redemption. Oh my god. Is the armor?
That's
I can't remember the name of the armor now. Dude, this is blowing my mind. I've never made any of these connections. I've never even like thought of it in the terms of like the Garden of it's the Salvation. Oh my god. I just straight feel dumb now tonight, man.
I'm sorry.
I feel straight stupid.
So yes, the armor.
It's all
Greaves of Ascendancy, Gauntlets of Exaltation, Plate of Transcendence, Helm of Righteousness.
God. How have I not, like, I feel dumb now, Myth. That's fine. That's on me. That's on me. Seeing all these connections and not being like, oh, hey, this is all a place of worship. This is literally now, like, the garden is now officially, even in the Vex's minds, a place of worship. Like that's all the garden is now. Like everything needs to lead to the garden, and whatever's in the garden, that's the new like final pattern. Is that kind of like the logic here?
That is the logic of the soul divisive.
Okay, so they're still their own thing now. The rest of the Vex forces in the soul system, or I guess in the universe, are still just kind of like we're recovery mode. Like that thing over there is wrong. I guess that's the thing too, is does the rest of the Vex see the soul divisive as like something wrong? Do they see the Black Garden as a bad thing, or like a wrong thing? I keep saying bad. I'm going to say wrong.
Yeah.
Like something that shouldn't exist, or like or do they see the Garden of Salvation and go, oh, this is the new pattern. We need to change our logic to conform to this now.
Yeah, I don't have the lore card in front of me. I forget what it was, but there is a lore card out there that describes the other Vex as being scared of the divisive.
Okay.
Of not just thinking like that's wrong, but almost being like rejecting them out of fear.
Okay. So more of like an excommunication. Oh my god.
Yes. Yes, exactly, like an excommunication.
I'm leaving tonight, Myth. That's it. I'm getting up. I'm leaving.
And I do want to point out they are called the soul divisive.
God damn it.
As in divided from the rest.
God dang it. I guess I can't use that here either, can I?
Oh.
Would it just be mine, dang it?
Yeah.
Or Atheon, dang it. No, what would it be? Harpy, dang it. I don't know. I don't know.
But so needless to say, the Garden of Salvation is essentially the church of the soul divisive. And I'm
referring to it as that from now on. You know that, right?
There you go. I mean, it's accurate.
It is.
And their object of worship has been this pyramid scale and presumably artifact underneath it.
I guess that's the thing too. Like God, I told you I'd have a ton of questions about this thing. Are they worship? So I'm going to try to like piece these things together. In the Black Garden, originally, they tried to we know now because of Lightfall they tried to
Mm-hmm.
create, they being the Vex, or they being the Witness, tried to create a copy of the Veil.
It is implied that the Vex are the ones that tried to create it, but it was under the direction of the Witness.
Okay, so Blackheart is created. Now it's this weird, like, we don't know what the hell this is. Start worshiping it. That now disconnects this whole section of Vex. When we get to the events of the Garden of Salvation, we then take that out. No big deal, right? VIP
Yep.
2014, kick in the door, NBD, done, got it taken care of. We then transition into the events, or the area of Garden of Salvation. They are still in a mode of worship, even though they can't, either can't or won't try to recreate a black heart, and now have this pyramid scale here. Are they worshiping the scale? Are they worshiping darkness as just an entity, as a thing, because they can't understand paracausality? Are they worshiping the statue? Is the statue radiating darkness? Is the statue what's actually part of the scale? Like, we know that there's statues in the big pyramid ships, but can little pyramid ships have statues connected with them?
So I don't know the answers to all of those, and
I know that was a
we
punch.
won't. Yeah, we won't, because but we can speculate on some. So I think they're worshiping the scale in particular,
Okay.
and I think they're worshiping it because that is what the Witness uses to commune with them.
Okay.
We know
Okay.
from Season of Defiance that all of the pyramid ships are like kind of literally built out of the Witness. Like
Yeah.
the Witness just it is a piece of the Witness. Every
Yep.
ship is. So this darkness scale, this pyramid scale, is a little chunk of the Witness, and
Oh
I
my
would
god.
assume that the Witness can communicate and perhaps grant power and or give them directives through it.
Is this the whole like cracked glass thing? Like it's using that as the cracked glass communication
I
point
think
with?
so. Yeah.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
if
I mean,
if
that makes
the
sense why it can communicate with these things. If it is part of the
right,
Witness, like it's just an extension of him or them. They? Them. I'm gonna say they and them. It's the Witness
yeah,
is weird now. Like this whole time I thought of him as just a thing, and then like last season just completely fucked everything we know about that. Like everything we know about the Witness has just been rapidly evolving over the last like year and a half, and it's a little hard to keep up with, to be honest.
yeah.
Especially for my poor little squirrel brain. But okay, so they so the it's so odd to me that we would defeat the Black Heart, or we would destroy the Black Heart, and then the Vex would just be like, okay, I guess we worship something else now, and not try to like recreate or something. And now knowing that the Witness tried to do it, I know a lot of this is probably like retconning stuff, because like the days of the Black Heart was like really early Destiny, and nobody knew
Yeah.
that this thing was going to take off. But like I still, it amazes me that the Witness would go to that extent to try to like recruit the Vex to create a Black Heart, because I'm assuming he would think that they are the only entity in the universe that would have the power to do such. Every other and still be controllable to an extent, right? Like the Cabal aren't really just controllable. The Hive aren't really controllable. I mean, he could probably do it with Taken, but then like you're creating your own power out of your own power. I don't know if it'd be as powerful as you'd want it to be. I don't know if I could use the word power more times in one sentence. Uh, but yeah, it blows my mind that Black Garden, all of the Vex strongholds have such a bigger implication than what it seems like they even have in game. Like
Oh yeah.
the Black Garden is a big deal, because like we even revisit it during Lightfall, because Ronan went and visited it.
Yes.
Which I know we'll
And
get to that eventually. Like that's
we'll get to that eventually. There's some things there that I think are worth
right.
talking about for sure.
So I mean, the Black Garden is a big deal. We now I now have a fully better understanding of the Vault of Glass and how big a deal that is, and even the Infinite Forest. Like these are big deals,
Mm-hmm.
and much bigger deals than I think are even like shown off in game. The Vex have always just kind of been like that nuisance in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're
Yep.
always there. They're always going to be there, but there's no head of a snake to cut off, right? Like there's no Keitel, there's no
Right.
Mithrax, there's no big baddie, there's no Savathun, there's no big baddie on the other side to be like take that guy out and we'll cripple their forces, and then the rest of them will have to worship us. Oh my God, are we Vex? I guess the Cabal and Elixir don't really worship us.
No.
We kind of treat ourselves as such, though. We're like, we're gonna kill your big bad baddie, and then we're your good guys. Come flock to us, children of universe system.
I mean, it's worked so far.
Yeah, yeah. Like, if it works for the Vex, why don't it work for us?
Right. But yeah, so I think what we know for sure, these Vex have devoted themselves to worship. The witness can commune with them in some way and speak with them and give them directives. Presumably, the witness is the one that directed them to create the Black Heart, or at least was knowledgeable about them creating the Black Heart. And maybe that's what happened. It might be that they created the Black Heart after being exposed to the Veil. And it's said during that mission even that like the Black Heart was a very poor imitation of the Veil.
Okay,
It
so the witness
it
might have
was
seen this
not
and been like, if this is a
successful.
right, like if this is a poor imitation of the thing I need, this is the closest I've seen in our universe of what I need. Let me start focusing here, thou.
Yeah.
Okay,
And from the Vex's point of view, okay, Blackheart disappeared, went poof, someone killed it. Uh but they still, it was dark. It was darkness energy. So perhaps they were just drawn to the next source of darkness energy, which would have
sure.
been this pyramid scale. Or the witness could have actively reached out at that point and been trying to gather the Vex to it, so that it could, use them to enact something
Start
or just
trying to
be
make
part of
another.
its.
Start
Yeah,
trying to make another Black Heart or something. Okay, that's making more sense now. And I guess
yeah,
that's the big thing too. Is like, I do like that idea of the witness seeing the Vex trying to create this thing, and then that thing disappears, and then the Vex going, okay, well, worship has changed our programming to say that that thing is that is the end goal, right? Like because before darkness, the end goal was just propagate the pattern, and now that
right.
thing, like having that thing and them not being able to do anything with it, um, which is absolutely a good thing. Um,
Yes.
they now have this new level of, I guess, understanding or programming that says worship, and therefore they have to look for something. And since that pyramid ship or the veil statue or the ancient artifact or one of these things or all of these things has a lot of darkness energy around it, they're like, okay, worship that now, protect that, because that's the whole like that's you're fighting through the garden to get to that point, and once you get to that, once you down the sanctified mind, now that thing is accessible and you can get to it and you can be like, oh, this is it. This is the thing that was sending the signal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, another interesting point of discussion about the two Axis minds, the consecrated and sanctified minds. There is some disagreement amongst the lore community as to.
No.
I know
No.
that never happens. There is some disagreement as to whether or not these minds should be considered Vex. The reason
Interesting.
being, is that uh, the the sanctified mind, the final boss for sure, and the consecrated mind, I think you could argue as well. They appear to wield darkness powers in some way. Not stasis or strand, not like dark in the way we consider it. But they're physically, there is kind of like digital spires and thorns that are poking out of their bodies all over the place.
Sure.
And so this is brought about a thought. If something is consecrated, is deemed holy, generally in a lot of faiths that requires some sort of ritual, to create holy water or to bless something, as again, looking at like Catholic Christianity, the body and blood of Christ. Like there's a process, something that has to be done to the item to make it holy or representative of something holy.
Sure.
Well, the only thing that really makes a decent amount of sense to sanctify a Vex that is all about worship is to introduce a little bit of the power that they're worshiping to that Vex. In this case, darkness. We know that when Vex Radiolaria meets Dark, it's not Radiolaria anymore.
Right.
It's
now
Alkahest.
Exo milk. Yeah.
It's what the Exos run off of. So possibly these two Axis minds aren't running off Radiolaria anymore.
Oh,
they're running off Alkahest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So there are various schools of thought that I've seen on this. Some of them,
they're still bad at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, no, they're still they're still bad guys. They're still in our way, but they may not be Vex in
anymore.
The traditional sense anymore.
I'm curious if like all the Vex in there are now like that. Like if the Black Garden truly is this level of like excommunication of the rest of the Vex. Like, I mean, I feel like that's the bigger threat then.
In a lot of ways. I mean, because on one hand you have the Vex, which are, complete the pattern. But
they're manageable. They're just flies on the wall.
Yeah, and they have a very
predictable.
I would say predictable and like non-aggressive goal.
Yeah.
Like they don't want their end goal is not to do anything that is outwardly harmful. They just want to complete the pattern.
Right. The Vex in here are actively doing something now.
Yeah, well when you introduce worship, you introduce the possibility of zealotry.
Right.
You introduce the possibility of
Jesus Christ.
You introduce the possibility of like the thing you are worshiping is now, perceived to be under attack.
Right.
Therefore, like the Vex will take offensive action that is militaristic rather than.
And that's the whole reason why they see that thing as an invasion point, because like they never saw Clovis's portal as an invasion point.
No, they didn't even like wake up for him.
Like he showed up and like they would have the occasional Minotaur, the occasional Goblin or whatever, but like it was nothing. Like they didn't. It's like they didn't care because it just didn't matter to them. Now inside the garden, like that shit matters. Like now they're looking at shit as like this is an invasion. Oh my god, man! My brain is broken tonight.
Well, say not too much longer to go for you.
Or not any different than any other night.
You said it, not me.
If the pattern fits. Yeah. Oh God, I'm vexed now. Oh God.
But yeah, so our guardian enters the garden, defeats the mines, thus stopping the Vex command structure of the garden. We kind of cut off the head of the Hydra for the ideas of worship and protect the garden.
So is that kind of like the end of the worshipingness for the garden? Like, is I don't want to say is the garden a safe space, but is like because we've dealt with these sanctified these highly religious things in the Vex hierarchy. I guess in the divisive hierarchy, I can't call them
Yeah.
Vex anymore now. I don't think I don't think the entities inside the garden are Vex anymore. I think they are the divisive now. It's a totally different. They look the same. I can't even say they look the same. They look similar, but like, yeah, I truly think of them as a different entity now. But because we've dealt with these things now, are the divisive a threat still?
We've definitely reduced their capabilities. I wouldn't say that they're not a threat.
Like, are they just going to start finding another thing and worship again?
Well, and I don't even know that they need another thing to worship. Like
they've already found one thing.
Right,
They don't
like
need
they
to
found the
change the thing.
witness.
Yeah.
Or the dark or whatever, however they perceive the witness.
Oh my God, can you think of that too? Like they've found the witness has found them, or they found the witness, or whatever, and then now they've started worshiping this thing, and now the witness has just straight up abandoned them.
Well, yeah, because he didn't care.
He didn't need them. Like they were just
No.
they were just pawns to him. Dude, that's oh my God. Now I can't shoot anything in there.
Well, they're gonna shoot you.
They are gonna shoot me.
They have no qualms about that.
I guess I'm the divinity bitch now. Whatever, it's fine.
Divinity does still do damage.
Oh shit! No, I'm just sending the Vex home.
There you
sending
go.
The radial area home, trying to de darkness the thing. God damn it.
But no, so we have not ended the threat. We have simply crippled the command structure.
Okay.
And because this is kind of a silo, this is a divided from the main Vex network. It's that idea of worship, like that still is the directive of this whole group of Vex. Even if they don't have someone leading the charge on like this is the most efficient way to worship or the most efficient way to defend, that's still their prime objective now.
That still blows my mind too. The idea that the Vex are just like, what is the most efficient way to worship?
Yeah. So the Vex that are left retaliate. They continue to invade the moon, and recognize essentially like, okay, we've lost our main processing units. We need to retreat to have time to recoup. And so their next thing that they do is they reinstate the undying mind, which, to remind everybody, the undying mind's purpose, its function, is to separate the garden from our reality and keep it separated.
Keep it safe. Keep it separate. Keep it safe.
Essentially. And this is the season of the undying with the undying mind. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to cut off our access to the garden again, so that they can continue to do, recoup and rebuild inside the garden undisturbed. The threat to the moon of the Vex invasions and the possibility of losing access to the garden again leads the Vanguard to devise a plan to deal with the undying mind. Specifically, Ikora arrives on the absolute space-brained solution.
Dude, it's straight stupid. We can call it what it is. It is stupid. You did not put a Vex gate in the tower.
Yeah, not a great
That's
idea.
stupid. Yeah, so she puts this gate up, and like we go invade, right? Like
Yeah.
we go kill millions and billions and trillions of these of this undying mind, like as many times as it takes to like tell the Vex in there, stop it.
Yeah. So the undying mind does what Vex do. It knows, okay, I need to protect myself so that I have time to cut the garden off. And so it creates simulations, hundreds upon thousands of simulations of itself and areas of the garden that it knows are contact points. And our job then, in a like very brute force, it's like let's just brute force the hack kind
That's
of way.
literally what it feels like. We literally just flood it with as many guardians as fast as we can.
Yep. The objective is keep throwing guardians through that portal until and keep killing undying minds until we find the real one amongst the hundreds of thousands of simulated ones.
Right. Which I don't even know that we ever found the like there is no like the real one because the Vex can just like recreate it. So yeah.
Yeah, but we can at least prevent it from cutting the garden off, and then now that we still have access to the garden, presumably they can run patrols in there and keep the Vex, occupied enough they can't start making more access mines.
That makes sense. Especially since it's now officially tied to our timeline again, like our existence.
Yep. And so that's what we do. We go through the Vex portal. We kill every iteration of the Undying Mind we can find until the original is found and destroyed.
I love it. There's a picture out there of like somebody's renamed their guardian, and they're standing on the Vex portal, and the guardian's name is just Ikora. Who hurt you? And it's like, yeah, that's pretty accurate for this scene right here.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, with that, the garden is squarely in our reality again. We have access to it through the portal on the moon. We have crippled the Divisive's command structure and their main processing units that were dedicating resources towards defense and worship. And the Vex are just kind of chilling now.
Oh, cool. Vex solved.
Yeah, solved, quote unquote.
See what I did there?
Yeah. But that is not where the Vex end, but that is going to be the end of our episode for this evening.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da, cliffhanger.
Kinda.
There are still a lot more Vexy things. Like
there's still a lot more Vexy things.
The entirety of Neomuna, like that needs some. Neomuna, you got some splaining to do. Steal from I Love Lucy. Yeah, there's still a lot more. Like, yeah, okay, there's more. All right, well let's do some shout outs then.
Yeah, so we've got one very large shout out, or a very long read of a shout out that came to us from Milan on our Twitter, and apologies in advance if I'm mispronouncing that. But they say, from the very first moment I discovered your podcast, I couldn't tear myself away from it. It has now become my main source of Destiny lore, and whenever there is no new episode, I play the old ones in succession. The penguins on Europa have particularly intrigued me.
They're so good. I still love that story.
The penguins are that whole thing is pretty
penguins
cool.
Is my wife's favorite entity, and so like everything around our house is penguin. I literally behind me I have a 3-foot tall stuffed penguin that we got from Moody Gardens down in Galveston, in Texas. That you can go feed penguins there. So yeah, I'm all on board with the penguins.
Yeah. But they continue. It says, since English is not my native language, I have long wanted to do something for local guardians, but this lore requires a huge amount of preparation. Maybe one day I will commit to it and spread these cool stories too. But for now, at least, I'm spreading everything I learn from you.
Yeah. Hopefully we're accurate.
Say, I feel like we do our best at least to be
absolutely
be accurate.
Absolutely.
Not to say we don't miss things here and there. I'm sure we do, but
or something new comes up and completely like
yeah.
I mean, like literally the last like year worth of like light and darkness stuff has made me like rethink everything that has to do with light and dark now. Like, yeah, and then we still have the entirety of Final Shape that's going to just completely mind blown.
And I'm ready for it. I am so ready for it. But
me too.
I'm glad that you enjoy the episodes, both new and old, from the sounds of it. And you know, I understand, believe me, how daunting a task it can be to try and think about like pulling on all these little threads for various subjects in Destiny to try and get something cohesive put together. But
that's why he does all the homework.
Yeah, that's why I get all the hard work.
That's why he does all the homework. Exactly. That's my squirrel brain would be like, oh, well, that's important too. Let's put that in there. Like one subject. We'd still be on penguins if that was the case.
We'd still be on penguins. I am certain of it.
Almost 2 years later, we'd still be on penguins. That's exactly what it would be.
But no, so if you do find yourself in the right frame of mind and the right enough time to do the preparation for it, it is really cool to be able to do stuff that helps people kind of understand what's going on, or just give them a little more appreciation of things. So it is rewarding in its own right. So yeah.
All right.
But I say the other real quick shout out. I'm not going to read out the whole thing because it was mostly a meme. But I will say
we got memified.
We did get memed a little bit.
I was like, we made it. We won the internet.
Yeah. A quick thank you to Tony Sloz and Scarlett for thinking well enough of my attempts at voice acting to
dude, they're so good
to want me to be hired by Bungie.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Genuinely, that is kind of cool. Is heartwarming for sure.
The picture
do not
amazing.
think I'm on that level, but
the picture for the meme is amazing. It says, what is it? Put on that Myths and Stories and forget about her.
Yeah,
and it's our logo in the background. I love it. I loved it.
So, but thank you for your confidence in my abilities and just support in general. So
yeah.
But yeah, if you liked what you heard, we would really appreciate if you leave a review on your listening platform of choice. If you feel strongly enough that you want to leave a text review, we encourage those as well. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at Myths and Stories, Z instead of an S. And you may see yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got my thank you. I'm going to thank that one Vex that decided to turn off gravity and completely invalidate that entire point of data. Because there's always that one guy. Like, there's always the one guy that's like, well, what if we do this? And every other person on the team is like, okay, look, Jim, we get that you want to have fun with this project. And by all means, have fun. But we need the data for, like, you can't just use bullshit. I mean, you could use bullshit data. People do it all the time. It doesn't help. It's just mean and insensitive to the group. Right, man?
Oh, are we done now?
That was it. That was it. That's all I had. All right.
That was quite the adventure.
This was. The Vex are an adventure. They're also our past and our future and our now. Exactly. You got anything else, man?
Nope.
Jesus. All right. Well, from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.